One of those.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Right. Initial welcome, everybody. We're going to start in a minute, one time. On
Hello. Yeah, as always, no one wants to sit in the front row, do they? You got
Yeah.
Two questions.
Welcome everybody, can you hear me?
Okay.
Well, we're very glad to be with her for the Leadership Hustings. We're still waiting for Sean Berry, but we trust that she's going to show up very soon. So, my name's Jill Westcott. I'm the Secretary of the South West Green Party Regional Committee, and I'll be helped in chairing by Paul, who is a one-person dispute resolution committee. What's your actual?
That would do nicely.
Paul housekeeping. If you hear a fire alarm, it's real. The exits are here, and we will meet on the corner of the block down that way. Three. So, we will be having an hour for the leadership hustings, then we will have a comfort break, and then we will go on to the deputy leadership candidates. If you need to come and go in the rest of the time, please be quiet and don't create a ruckus. We are going to very much support our candidates for the leadership and deputy leadership. With the Green Party being a small party, many of us have to take leadership roles. And we're very glad that those present with us and those still to arrive are putting themselves forward in this role. So please support them. Our questions will be respectful, but hopefully we will also support them by challenging and asking them some really hard questions. The questions will take place only in written form, so you should have some paper on your seat on which you can write your questions. Hold them up and they will be collected by Guy Holtney, our Southwest Field Officer, who will be looking out for them. And he will also manage the microphone. So that we will try to sort the questions here at the chair so that we get a good cross-section. Welcome, Sean. Very pleased to see you. We'll just have a little kerfuffle while we redo the drawing lots as to who's going to start. I'm not sure that will work. No excuse. Yeah. So I think that concludes what we need to say. The candidates for leadership will get an initial pitch of 3 minutes each. We will then have the questions, and they will be given a short time, probably 2 minutes to sum up. But we'll see how we go with that. Okay, so you can raise your hands for questions at any time. So, have we decided who's starting? Okay. So, Leslie, please introduce yourself.
I've only got 2 minutes. So, my name is Leslie Rowan. I'm from Yorkshire, and you're wondering why I am. That reason is because I believe the Green Party has lost connection with its roots and with its members. In particular, regarding members, I think we should start by giving policy making back to ordinary members like you and me. That's replacing all these stage-managed party conferences. I've discovered how this mic works. With party conferences with online debate. Building up a policy for engaging the whole membership, not just a few hundred who can afford the time and money to go to conferences, involving everybody in the Green Party, not just a few. On the wider stage, we need to get back to our own message, our unique message, to stand out, to become a beacon of hope in this landscape of despair. And to do that, we need to build on our strengths. And what is our biggest strength? We are the Green Party. And effective action on climate change. And that means having an economic strategy of degrowth, not ever increasing consumption. And the China 13, and I quote, if the world wishes to avoid exceeding the 2 degrees rise in global temperatures that will trigger non-reversible climate change, then the world, including the UK, have to adopt a degrowth strategy. They also said continuing with our days is incompatible with meeting our international obligations on the degrowth strategy for the UK. But that means rejecting the neoliberal economic orthodoxy of the EU, rejecting austerity, privatization, globalization. That means accepting the result of the 2016 with the ecological alternative of local self-reliance and resource conservation. That means rejecting all free trade agreements, including the single market. We in the UK now have a once in a lifetime opportunity to create sustainable jobs in a sustainable economy. By looking forward, not back, we can put the green in change. Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping to time. I will give you a 30-second warning if you like.
Can I stand here? Is that all right? I just like to, particularly in the semi-dark, I like to be able to see people's faces. I can't actually see your face. I'm getting a lot of energy from the members. Are we starting? Yeah. Okay, great. I feel I'm getting a lot of energy from the members, if I may say that. And that's because the Green Party is more than just a professional party. People love the Green Party, not just voters, but activists and members and candidates. They feel something about the Green Party. They think it's going to offer them a completely different kind of politics. So what I'm going to say in just a few minutes, and hopefully I can elaborate and develop this theme as the hour goes on, is why I'm standing for the Green Party and how I think I can speak to that ambition and that voice and that value, what makes us distinctive and unique, and that value, what makes us distinctive and unique, isn't just about our care and consideration about social justice and climate change. It isn't simply because we say it's not about looking after number one. It's much more than that. Politics can be about value. Politics can be about the 24,000 people dying a day of malnutrition and preventable disease around the world, besides our contemporaries, who are finding it extraordinarily difficult just to make ends meet and know where their next meal is coming from, in terms of food poverty in this country in the 21st century. But it isn't just about our contemporaries. It's about the voiceless. It's about future generations. So when I think about why I'm standing, it's not just because of my youngins out there, who might cause a bit of a cacophony later, and I hope you'll forgive me for that. It's about my children's children's children and your children's children's children, 50, 100 years into the future. Those people, human being Homo sapiens, wretched that we are as a species, you might think we don't really deserve to survive. But what about all the species and all the non-human animals in the world that we're going to take with us? But let's take those voiceless. They don't exist now. They don't have names to them, but we know they will exist sometime in the future. And I feel as if they should be left as much and as good as we enjoy today, despite our overconsumption, finite resources being squandered by the few. So what is it about those voiceless? Surely they have a claim upon us. It's our responsibility. This is last chance saloon. The reason I'm standing is not because I want to stand. It's not because I have a desire. It's not because it's a job. It's a calling. I feel as if I have no choice. This is the only party that's fit for that challenge. And I'm an ordinary member, and that's what makes me an extraordinary member. Thank you.
Sorry. I should have said, I'll give you a 30-second warning for the things that, yes. Okay. Hi, I'm Sian Berry. The last time I was in this building was when I organised a conference for road campaigners. That was my previous job. And if I'm elected, as a team with Jonathan, look forward to doing more of that kind of work, which is travelling around the country, supporting campaigners in different parts of England and Wales. I was elected as a councillor in 2014. And I've been describing how that really transformed
my outlook on politics, doing casework in particular, doing those things that you can only do when you're elected as a councillor, when you've got that voice in the room, really, I think, made me grow up a lot. I've been a campaigner and a politician all the way through, fighting to get elected. But I think it is important that when you get elected, you realise how much of a responsibility you have. And I want more Greens to be elected like me. I fought a lot of campaigns. I also fought the 2016 mayoral election in London for the second time. We beat the Lib Dems. We got our 2 assembly members elected, and I've been working really hard holding the mayor to account since then, but also convincing him to do some of the things that were in my manifesto and not his, like give ballots to residents fighting against demolition on their estates, and putting £45 million back into youth services that have been cut abominably. So I think I'm ready, I'm willing, I'm very excited to be standing for leadership, and I'm very excited to be doing this in a team with Jonathan. I've always thought co-leaders was the greenest way of doing leadership. I think standing as a team, leading as a team, it tells the world something about our values. I think Jonathan and Caroline have really, this is a really crucial time. We've got a growing reputation as a party. We're buoyant in spirits after the last local elections, but we've got huge tests coming up, local elections next year, and then again a London election in 2020, and we must have the best team representing us. I think as a team, we've got the right ideas and plans for taking us up to the next level. These are very hard times, but both of us fought and won hard battles in the council elections this year. We did that with the help of James Byrne, who came from the West Midlands to give us advice. We couldn't have done it without him. I've been calling it Target to Win 2.0 because it's the most exciting thing it's a real move on from what we used to do. So training is the important pledges that we're making. I hope you look at our website and see all the different ways we want to train people in elections, but also in issue-based campaigning. And we're very, very ambitious for our party. We think the Green Party is poised to get another surge very, very soon. We must be ready for it. And we think we're the right team to lead the party in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have the question from Robbie? No? It's from Adrian Tate. Adrian, are you here? Okay. Our first question then is, what do you see as the best balance between the ecological and social justice dimensions of the Green Party's ethos and policy? And can you say something about how these issues dovetail in the context of a world where all human needs are jeopardised by the climate and environmental emergency? So we will move along this way. Sharash, I'll ask you to start this time.
What's the time?
Should we try a thing for a minute?
We've got about 10 to 12 questions. Yeah. Social justice and, as the questioner framed it, the ecology or climate change are inextricably bound up. And as I said just a moment ago, we really are at last chance saloon in terms of the climate change tipping point. And people are suffering the consequences of climate change as we speak, whether in the Maldives or Bangladesh, through sea level rises. That is happening because of the West's overconsumption. And guess what? That is social injustice, because it's the people least responsible for causing the worst effects of climate change who are most at the sharp end of it, and a double injustice, are least able to afford the remedial action to deal with the consequences. So yes, we should articulate that duality, the way that those two are bound up, and we need to express with vigor how it is that we need to change to live according to our meaning.
Thank you. I mean, it isn't a balance, is it? They're not on opposing sides. As Greens, we always make the links between solving all our problems together. And I think that works at every level. Like Shara just said, climate change produces social injustice. It makes inequality worse. It makes conflict worse. We have to be drawing those links. But we do it at every level too. So when we're talking about local policies, we need to be saying that if we insulate people's homes, that helps reduce fuel poverty. There's a win-win there. If we make cities less car dependent, get people able to walk and cycle, well, walking and cycling are free. There's social justice in that as well. And we always have to be making those links together. So I think it's an artificial thing to talk about a balance. I think we have to be talking about things all the time that solve all the problems at once, because those are the kinds of policies Greens have.
It's all about justice generally. I think, I mean, it's justice for the world in terms of the ecology, it's justice for individuals with regards to social justice. And what we need are practical solutions. I mean, the point I'm making about degrowth is that we move away from consumption and we use the money effectively to provide public services, not private profit. And you do that by taxing the things that people are consuming. So you make the cars more expensive and you use the money to invest in public transport. You make the NHS put it back into the public sector, and by doing that, you actually save a lot of money, and you use that again to improve the social lot. So I think the two go together, but it is important at the end of the day. It is the economy that's important, and that's having an economy.
But if I just mention your names and read them out, would you be okay with that? Okay, thank you. So we had a question from Ian Hampton. It goes like this. Progressive Alliance! Exclamation. If elected as leader, will you support, encourage, or even entertain this policy? Then, very related, from John Clark. In what scenario would you have discussions about electoral alliances? And then finally, from Lynn Patterson in Bath. Thank you, Lynn. What is your position on the idea of Progressive Alliance in the light of the past consequences? So if we could take those three as a set of questions, that would be quite good. We'll start with a minute each.
A minute?
Well, all right, we'll give you 2 minutes each.
Imagine it's a
Don't
TV
stretch my
interview.
generosity.
You've got a minute on TV.
Okay, there's three things it's important to know about the Progressive Alliance initiative. The first thing is that it didn't happen. It was an offer that was made in Labour to come around to support proportional representation. That was its absolute goal. And Labour were not cooperative, and it was called off. And I spent a lot of time during that time on the phone to parties, trying to persuade them to stand, because Labour had not reciprocated our offer. The second thing is that it wasn't invented on a whim. It was first proposed under the previous leadership team on 29th of June 2016 in a joint letter from Caroline Lucas, the leader of the Welsh Green Party, and others to Labour, suggesting that this might be a thing. The third thing is it wasn't on its own in any way responsible for reduction in vote count. If you look at what went on in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, look at the detail of the polling, our vote share in national polls had dropped quite considerably, and well before that, due to the Corbyn surge. He'd gone into our territory, he was anti-austerity, we won the argument on austerity. But we were struggling a little bit for relevance, and we, in the Progressive Alliance, we grabbed candidates. We did not get a good result, no. And I am not keen seat. And if we're not standing every seat, us and say, you know, that Progressive Alliance thing, we're working on it now. If they come to us and we're not seat, we've got nothing to bargain with. So get selecting your candidates now. Thank you.
My answer to the first question is no. As far as the scenario is concerned, I mean, the whole point of this, as Sean was saying, is we need to get to proportional representation as a method of electing people. That's the only fair method of electing people. And the Lib Dems had a wonderful opportunity to do that, and they blew it. You know, this AV nonsense that they came up with was totally cannot be trusted. You cannot trust the Liberal Democrats to keep working, as we saw in the alliance that wasn't an alliance, we were just told about in various places. They really didn't keep their word. Most of the parliamentary Labour Party, as you know, are closet Tories anyway, so we can't rely on them either. So, frankly, I think that the important point is for the Green Party to have its own unique effort, like so Podemos in Spain or Syriza in Greece, have a populist message, a message that people will vote for, and have the confidence to say we are the Greens.
Does anybody remember Jonathan Dixon? He was a fantastic councillor up in Scarborough. He was up at a conference once and he went, now I listened with incredulity to what Chancellor was saying. Firstly, I've never signed any bit of paper about Bristol Alliance. I refused to, and I asked for extended consultation with the party, although the leadership at the time were under intense pressure to try and advocate something of the sort. I've warned against it. When you make a mistake, and I understand that people may have done so wishfully, you at least need to learn from it. You need to admit. You might even need to say sorry. A representative of the party is not just somebody who warned against it, but it will be a clean break. We need to get back to what it is that we stand for. As a gentleman earlier, when I was speaking to you before I came here, said, we let down monumentally all those voters who stuck with us year in, year out, let alone the candidates who stood for us. We let them down because we lost our gumption. We are not going to be selling out to the Labour Party anytime soon or ever. We're not going to be selling out to Corbyn. When he talks about, he might be saying the right things and the right noises about no to Trident renewal. He might be saying the right things even about unilateral nuclear disarmament. But does his party believe that, full of its neo-Blairite cronies? Of course not. We are the one united party who can stand firm, because guess what? We believe in those policies. We passed them ourselves. And I'll be the leader who faithfully, unapologetically represents the party. So no to, particularly in Bristol. What an absolute dire result. 14% drop in Molly Scott Cato's constituency. Unbelievable.
Our next question comes from Daniela from Bristol Green Party. Are you here, Daniela?
Hi. My question is just you touched on it really about Corbynism, and I'm interested in hearing your views about how we can really got ourselves together and had a proper message about how we counteract.
Still badly scribbling away here. Well, of course, I mean, the first thing to do is to emphasise the differences in policy. I mean, nuclear energy is an obvious one, the various other ones. But I mean, the main point about the Parliamentary Labour Party is that they're not Corbynistas. I mean, basically, they'll do everything that's the opposite of what Corbyn wants. And I think that's the different thing we have to point out, is that look at your local Labour member of Parliament or candidate, whoever it is, and identify exactly where they stand. And I think most of them are pretty much to the right of Genghis Khan. So I don't think it'd be that difficult to expose them for what they really are. There's a lot of myth around Corbyn, but Corbyn is just one man in a desert of ideas.
Thank you. Yeah, so what I was sort of saying, austerity in 2016, this was our big difference from the other parties. And we won lots and lots of votes on that, and that has pushed Labour to be anti-austerity. But there's a lot more to it than that. And I think we have to go on to the next stage of what is different about how Greens would organise public services. And there's a really worrying sort of top-down statist thing from Labour. On local councils, they tend to tell local people what they want to do to you and then pat you on the head and not consult you properly. We see this all the time with Labour councils. We've got a very different message. It's about cooperation. It's about local control. It's about community-led housing, community initiatives. Meanwhile, spaces like in here, these are all things that particularly in London, we've seen huge battles over regeneration with Labour councils. This is why Jonathan's Party, Lambeth, have gone from one councillor to 5 councillors because Greens are there effectively holding Labour to account where they fail. I think we've got a very distinctive set of policies. If the snap general election was called tomorrow, we could fight a very good battle showing why we are different to Labour, why we go further than Labour, why we stand up for communities more than Labour. And I think that's something we have to develop and speak more loudly about right throughout at every single level, because they are failing on lots of things.
Corbyn, of course, represented a threat, some might say, but he was also an opportunity. And we missed that through our lack of confidence in ourselves. Because he was opening up a space. He was making those arguments. He was making those points about whether it's Trident or nuclear disarmament. And he opened up a space. And people were attacking him for it. And we should have occupied that space and said, here are the better arguments. Here are the better reasons. And no, we are going to be unequivocal in that because our party is. Just a wider point. We shouldn't define ourselves only in relation to Labour or even the left-right spectrum. We need to appeal to a higher common factor than that. It is humanity itself. And there are many people, they even change political affiliation throughout their life. I was organising a full slate in my borough, and I had ex-Labour, ex-Respect, ex-Lib Dem, yeah, ex-Conservative, and even a UKIP there. So the thing is that what is it about the Green Party that can actually inspire people across traditional political lines or none? It's that we are a humanistic, rational party of conviction. So let's have the confidence. We absolutely can distinguish ourselves from Labour, but not simply by comparing ourselves to Labour.
Thank you all. Next question then from Caroline New. Caroline, would you like to put your question, please?
Hello. Is it working?
Yes.
I'm part of a large and growing group within the Green Party that thinks we're in a climate emergency. I understand that GPEX has authorised a national climate change campaign. I'd like to know whether you would support that actively in the coming period.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, climate change, it's upon us. We're starting to see the effects of climate change already. We need to be very, very bold, I think, in calling out extreme weather events right around the world. There's disasters happening almost every day due to the messed up climate that we already have. And that's with 1 degree of warming. If we do our absolute best, we're going to make 1.5. 2 is the current target of the UK government. None of that is good enough. And none of the policies that the government are doing is good enough either. The renewable energy policies are hopeless. They're forcing through fracking, forcing that on local communities. We have a big job to do, and I'm really pleased that the party is developing a campaign. I think it needs to be at absolutely all levels. We need actions for local parties to be doing. We need big regional actions, and we need our spokespeople to be speaking up as loudly and clearly as they can on every single platform that we get, that climate change is happening and that we have to act now or it'll be absolutely too late.
As Leslie is fond of saying, we are the Green Party. Now, there is a lot in that, actually, and we shouldn't sell ourselves short. In fact, many political parties would die to have a unique selling point. And this is a big question of the day, which we should be all over the airwaves about it. They should be coming to us. So we, again, lacking confidence, do not occupy that space. I don't mean one spokesperson. All of us are spokespersons for this, and everybody in this room, I'm sure, can speak with conviction about this topic. And so why are we selling ourselves short? We should be bold and discussing it voluminously. Now, I sometimes it's been said that maybe I'm a bit alarmist. I'm not. I'm objective, and there's a big difference. Because if the situation is alarming and we're not fulfilling that educational role, then nobody else will.
I don't think I got the accent quite right there, but still, a good try. If you were listening to my speech, I think I answered the question, Caroline. Thanks, by the way, for offering to put me up last night. I do appreciate that. But as I was saying, we need a real sea change, not just fiddling around the edges, saying we'll do this or we'll do that. What we need is a complete sea change in our economy. We need a deep growth economy. That effectively means no more economic growth, no more building more cars than we can deal with, no more building more things that we can throw away after 2 weeks. What we need to do is create an offer to people, an alternative to what they got at the moment. And we need to sell that, because what we're talking about here, as has been described, a wonderful book here called Under a Green Sky, we're talking about mass extinction. 97% of the world's living beings were destroyed in the last mass extinction, which was down to climate change 200 million years ago. That can happen again. So we're not talking about little things. So, but it does mean this big change. It means no free trade agreements. It means having a anti-austerity economy, not like the ones we talked about earlier. And I'll talk about the austerity in a minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Alex. Alex, are you here?
Okay, well, I've purposely left the question quite open, so I'm just going to read what it says, because I'm just interested in seeing how each of you would interpret it. It says, how would you address the differing views on the Green Party policy regarding transgender equality?
I'm proud of what campaigners in our party, through the Green Party, have done to promote the rights of people of any sexuality and any gender. And it's been educational for all of us, and it is also something which I've been inspired by. Now, we are ahead of the curve yet again, whether we're talking about changing policy in passports to make sure that it isn't just a tick box exercise on binary lines, whether it's making better accommodation in our own conferences. I've also had experience of working in my day job in a university environment, making sure that our forms or selection criteria adopted the best practice on equalities legislation. So absolutely, since we're talking about transgender as well, I was at the march in London, the Pride March, an absolutely disgusting attempt to hijack a beautiful display of pride in our country.
This is obviously all about equal rights for everyone, people being people, people being themselves, allowing people to be themselves. But I also think it's a good example of what I want to do in terms of the membership, which is to basically put the question out there to the whole membership and have a national debate about the ramifications. Because the point is, none of us here are experts on this particular subject, but there are people who are perhaps give us much more insight and much more ideas and develop the policy as a party as a whole. Because that's what I want done, is to see more issues being discussed more openly and more publicly, so that when we have the debate, everyone can take part, everyone can put their point of view.
Yeah, I'm for equality. It's the law that there shouldn't be discrimination against people on the basis of their gender and sexuality. And I'm proud that many of the institutions that I'm part of, including the Green Party, are standing up for the rights of trans people in the way that they are. Just to give one example, there was a couple of people wrote a really mean-spirited letter complaining that some trans women were using the women's pond in Highgate. That was very insulting, tried to sort of almost identify some individuals, because so few trans women had been going to the pond. And you can imagine when you're transitioning, the choice to go out in swimwear for the first time. Of course, you're going to go to the ladies' pond as a safe space, and yet there they were being abused in the pages of the Daily Mail by a couple of people. And I was really proud that the Kenwood Ladies Pond Society and the City of London responded absolutely unequivocally, said trans women and women, they have the right. Sorry, I've told a very long story. But yeah, no, I'm proud that we stand up against this. I'm dismayed by some of the rhetoric, some of the abuse that's coming from people who I know from other contacts. And I think we are right in the Green Party to stand up for the rights of trans people and against this abuse.
Right, we have about 7 or 8 minutes left. So we're going to do a bit of grouping in a minute, just so that everybody gets a chance to ask the question. The first question I'd like to go with now is from Kat, please. Your last question. Oh, okay. So Kat says, yes, Kat. Given the result of the recent Wexit referendum, how will you support Wales? Okay, yes, can I do this too? Okay, and this is from Jill. How will you speak for Devon and rural southwest, and the rural southwest, and what will you be talking about? So this is kind of regional, you know, how you get away from London and the national agendas. I'll start with Leslie.
Well, coming from Yorkshire, of course, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was talking about buses the other day in London. I was saying we should have a car-free Sunday, and I was pointing out that I've got a bus-free Sunday in Yorkshire, and the rest of the week. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of local autonomy, I'm a big supporter of Scottish independence. I'm a big supporter of a referendum for reunification in Ireland, and I'm a big supporter of Wales having the same ability to decide their own future. Similarly, Devon and the rural southwest. But again, I bring you back to the point I was making about membership deciding and having this debate amongst the whole membership. In particular, you know, you could have regional discussions about the best way forward. And again, I do believe that there are far more capable and interesting people out there who haven't had a chance, who haven't got a voice, who can't stand up on stage and pontificate like us lot, who have a much more interesting contribution to make to this party than anybody standing here.
Yeah, so I think the next Welsh Assembly elections, 2021, which comes after the term of office for which we're standing, but I think the next 2 years are really important for Wales, and it's going to be our job in the new leadership team to make sure they get the support they need to develop as a party in Wales and get ready for those elections. And I think this has to start with more staff, more professional support, and paid leadership, paid representatives. I think that's something that was talked about and didn't happen before, and it's something, if we can just put the costings on that, it's fundraisable for, we can go out and do it. And I think Green Party, England and Wales, needs to be fundraising to help Wales get to that position. So that's something I'll be arguing for. In terms of the Southwest, I think when I was working as a road campaigner, a lot of the work I did was in this area. There's huge plans for transport at Bristol, which are happening. Very, very controversial road building that I was campaigning against. I'm going to be travelling to the Green Gathering, which is up in Chepstow, and then I'm going to be going down to Newton Abbot and then to Penzance and St Ives, where I'm going to be talking and listening to people in the Southwest over the next week or two. So I hope to hear more about what they would like, and I'm quite well aware of their transport issues. But yeah, I think it's really important that leaders do reach out, go to and listen to all the different parts of England and Wales, and just don't assume that everything is like it is in London. You're right, we can have car-free days there, but you're unlikely to get one of those in rural Devon.
Just to clarify, that first ting is end, yeah? 30 seconds and then final.
Well, I'm afraid because it's only a minute,
Yeah.
I've been doing it at 35 seconds, so that gives you good
Yeah.
notice.
We start. Wexit, if you're calling it that, must have been a sign of something within the context of Green Party in Wales, and I was speaking to some friends in the Welsh side of Green Party in Wales, and Pippa and others. I was asking them what would happen to the ballot, or it would take say you gone for independence, what would happen to the leadership ballot? It would take a while for all those decisions and implementation to be done. But whatever, we know that the result wasn't for independence as such, but it is a sign of something. And as deputy leader, I observed resentment, frankly, that decisions were often taken at GPEX, despite whatever voice Welsh members might have had. Decisions were taken without proper accommodation. And I think we need to take full consideration of that. And I don't just mean the royal visits, as I've heard it said. Yes, so I'm one of those who would certainly be visiting regularly, whether it's Welsh Pride. I've visited Wales generally, Snowdonia, Carnarvon, all these places. I'm well travelled. But I think ultimately we need to make sure, just as minorities sometimes don't get their voices heard, we need to make much more effort at that inclusion. It may also include having more conferences in Wales, and I don't just mean Cardiff, maybe some of those far-flung places where I couldn't even hope to pronounce. Longer to get to. But that's our commitment, just like a postage stamp.
Just looking forward to our second Hustings, could I just ask how many of our candidates for deputy are here? If you could just raise your hands. Thank you very much. Okay, so same as this. Our next question is from Jenny Rust. Jenny, would you like to? Yes. Right. We had 63,000 members in December 2015. We now have 40,000. Under 40, correction. Even allowing for the green surge to dissipate, this is not good news. What are you personally going to do to increase and retain membership?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are reducing in number, and it isn't people resigning and people not renewing from the green surge, as your question implies. But it needs to be corrected. If you look at how people feel about the parties, we're really popular. People who vote for the other parties, they like us a lot. So what's preventing them joining us? And I think it's a case of seeing us not as particularly effective, maybe, of not having met us. And this is corrected by activity, by action, by going out, knocking on doors, meeting people. Obviously, being a local councillor and being effective and sorting out problems for people makes them more likely to join. I recruit members quite a lot myself. But we need more of our members to be going out and just saying hi and knocking on doors and speaking to people on their own doorsteps. The other thing I've got proposed is to do more single issue campaigning, to get people trained to campaign on individual issues. Because I think one of those things is that will make you join a party is if they have actually taken action and solved a problem that means something to you. So whether that's stopping a bypass, fighting against fracking, getting empty homes brought back into use, all of those single issue campaigns that can be enacted on the national stage in terms of legislation, but also have local actions tied to them. Those are things that I think we can do more of, and that will bring more people across that divide of from liking us, from enjoying our existence, to actually wanting to be part of us, to be part of a movement that's taking action.
See, we can work very well together. We can pass microphones. Look, I was part of the leadership team in 2015 who saw what's been called denominated the Green Surge. It was truly a wonderful experience to see that people were getting behind us. There are many reasons why people join a party, many reasons why people came to us in their droves at that time. And it was truly shocking, and it was really quite horrifying for me to see how we had wasted all that political capital in 2017 through the Progressive Alliance, as I say. So what is it that would have allowed them to stay on board? Because once they've joined us, what is it? Well, can you imagine being a new member in 2015, thinking, here's a party I can believe in? And then can you imagine 2 years later, they don't believe in themselves enough to be able to stand and to be able to vote. That was an extraordinary blunder. So yes, let's not sell ourselves short. It's hard enough retaining members and growing our membership. the last thing we want to do is shoot ourselves in the foot and say we don't even believe in ourselves.
How many times have you been spoken to someone on the door and they said, I would have voted for you, but you just had no chance? We've got to think bigger than just having training schemes. We've got to think bigger and be a populist party. Like Believers in Spain, Syriza in Greece, the Five-Star Movement in Italy, and indeed even Jeremy Corbyn, what do they all have in common? They each in their own way gave their country hope, gave their people hope for a better future. And that's what we need to do. We need to have a new alternative green message based on no growth, based on a green economy. That will bring people in as membership. That will bring people in to support us if we give them real hope.
Okay, we're going to do a bit of strange grouping now. We've got a set of 3 questions, some of which might repeat for the deputies. Okay, so can I ask Jenny Linstall to ask her question?
Before, I'm happy if it just goes to 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so Jenny says, how would you explain the position of leader in the context of the Green Party? So that one there too. And if you could add a comment or two on these last 2, that would be helpful as well. This is from Carla. Just, do you want to? Thank you. Give you the chance. Given how non-hierarchical our party is, one of the most important characteristics of Green Party leaders is their skill in public speaking. So, what is the biggest or scariest bit of public speaking you've done, and what aspect of your speaking skills do you want to work on? So, the first one is, how do you explain the position of leader? Second is, how scary is it to speak in public? And the third kind of element of this is from Ricky Knight. Yeah. Do you want to say that? Oh, thank you. Because I do it so long. As leaders of GPW, you will be head of the queue for question time today, LBC, etc. How will you respond to hostile questioning? And how will you respond if you genuinely do not know the answer? Okay, so leader in the Green Party, scary public speaking, and how you're going to deal with hostile questioning.
The easy question. How explain leading? But is this on? Sorry. Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. My concept of a leader is a facilitator, basically someone who is here to help you as the membership to grow the Green Party, to develop the Green Party. I'm going to nudge it in this particular direction I've been talking about, deep growth, etc. But I think the important point is that you facilitate the party to get forward, and you also lead in terms of ideas, and that's what I've been trying to do today, to actually give you some ideas of what we can actually do, which will make a real difference to our society, a real difference to people in this country. The scariest thing in terms of public speaking, well, you know, I'm just an older member, and I'm standing up against the great and the good here, so this is pretty scary. But handling that at question time, well, I think the important point, I've got an admission here. See, I've got this wonderful technique. If I don't know the answer to a question, I'll say, well, what I'll do is I'll take it and ask the membership. And they'll tell you the answer. We'll put it out the consultation. Because that is the important point. The important point is not every member, every leader knows all the answers about the questions of how do you finance housing, or how do you, so create a new alternative society. It is important that we use the resources we have within the party, the members who have this expertise, and bring them forward as spokespeople for the party, and not just rely on 1 or 2 people.
Okay. Well, the position of leader is a lot easier to explain than principal speaker was. I was principal speaker, and I did have an issue with the fact that I always had to explain it at the beginning of every single interview. It used up so much airtime. And actually, I think Greens do understand that our leaders are not the same as leaders in other parties. We lead from within a collegiate structure, within and we lead by listening, by sharing knowledge between parties. That's why going out around the country is so important. That's why what Natalie Bennett did and what Jonathan's been doing over the last 2 years is so important. It's very, very different than the kind of leader who dictates downwards, and everybody I think gets that the Greens don't do that. And co-leadership gets that across even better. The scariest public speaking I did was I went to a People's Assembly rally last summer, and it was right when we were trying to argue for ballots for people on estates in London, and we were trying desperately to get Jeremy Corbyn to say something about the many Labour councils who were demolishing so many council homes. And people had challenged him at speaking events and at Labour Party meetings. He said nothing, scooted around and fudged the issue. And he was speaking after I was. So I stood up and I issued a challenge to Jeremy Corbyn to do this. And there was this crowd who were like the most Jeremy Corbyn fans ever. And I was really nervous. But they applauded me, got what I was talking about, and it wasn't scary in the end. When I don't know the answer to a question, I give them an answer I do know. So if they say to me, so how many people have been evicted from renting in London in the last year? I don't know that, but I do know that it's the leading cause of homelessness. And when I did a survey on private renters, 43% of them had made to move and didn't want to. I just put up whatever facts I do have, basically, and that always seems to work. And the other thing about live TV or radio is you keep talking until you're absolutely interrupted, and that's the way to handle it. No pauses, and then, sorry, I'm going
Thanks very much for those 3 questions. Very good questions around that theme. Firstly, what is it to be a leader of the Green Party in particular? It's true that we are and take ourselves to be a non-hierarchical organisation. And I think ultimately that we're an open authority, not a closed authority. That's to say you won't respect somebody simply because they have that title, but because they own that title. They actually enjoy the authority which you would invest in them to properly exercise that. That doesn't mean that the leader can't have leadership qualities. I think I have some leadership qualities. I think we all have some leadership qualities. And you do look to those leader figures to try and promulgate those. So it's not a case of leader follower. It's a leader trying to encourage more leaders in the organisation. In terms of scary interviews, there was one in the 2015 general election when Natalie had come under quite a lot of fire with respect to our policy on anti-terror legislation, whether people should be allowed to affiliate to groups which had been outlawed. So I was asked, I got the call sort of fairly late at night, Radio 5 Live, one of these fairly sharp, Steve Holland, I think it was, sharp interviews. And what was my priority? My priority was this. First of all, to properly and faithfully communicate party policy, because I believed in it. I looked back at it and I thought, we don't need to be apologising for this. Let's explain it here. Secondly was the reputation of risk or damage to the party. And thirdly was Natalie's reputation. I wanted to come out of that interview, and I think I did a fairly good job of trying to represent us. In terms of how it is to respond to what you don't know, you should be able to say that you don't know.
I don't know.
A little bit of humility in politics is important. It's vital and it's crucial. And we get stuck, actually, when we make policy on the who. And I suspect that's happening because we want to be able to answer a question on which there isn't policy. Instead of saying, being proud of the fact that we have member-led policy, we shouldn't make it up on the who, and we should explicate the values which would steer us in the answer, but we mustn't. We're accountable. I don't have that luxury as your representative of just explaining what it is that I want. I will have the self-discipline to articulate the party policy first and foremost.
Thank you very much. We're now going to give the candidates a very brief summing up chance of about 1 minute. And after that, we will have a very short comfort break before we start the deputy hustings. So I'm going to hand over to Sean this time to sum up. Sean.
Thank you. I think we haven't talked enough about the green vision for the economy. I want to just answer one of Leslie's points really about degrowth. And I don't think it's important to talk about degrowth in the same way as I don't think it's important to talk about growth. We have to talk about our vision for an economy that can provide secure homes, meaningful work, a work-life balance that you choose, with a basic income for absolutely everyone, full filling education that's free for all throughout life, the ability to play an empowered part in society through community initiatives in arts and culture, and all of those things we can provide in a sustainable economy, a strong, resilient economy without growth. So what is it that we're missing that growth needs to provide? Now, to my mind, that's the green vision that we need to be articulating. And I think it's really important that more of our members do get trained, more of our local parties do get help to develop, to recruit more members, and that we're ready for anything that the politics can throw at us, whether that's Brexit, a snap general election, or a difficult interview. I think you need the best people in your leadership positions. I'm really hoping you'll elect me and Jonathan, because we're a strong team, we're an election-winning team, and we really want to represent you for the next 2 years.
I like hecklers just as much as I like hard interviews.
Do you?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Good. Pleasure to meet you.
What's the name?
I'm candidate for leader of the Green Party. So listen up.
Okay,
Listen up.
Yeah, I listen.
What do I mean by bring power to truth? Well, we are a campaigning and electoral force at our best.
Really?
But what is it about the idea of speaking truth to power, which I've heard people using a lot, even a conference slogan? Unfortunately, it doesn't always work. Think of fracking and the quadrilla. They've got to put our bodies on the line.
Sorry.
So we need a shift in consciousness. It's not enough for us to say, speak truth to power, when we have power which turns their deaf ear. Just like hear no evil. Instead, we have got to have the gumption to say, the power rests with us. It's our responsibility. We are responsible for the voiceless future generations, for the non-human animals. We are their last chance saloon. So we're going to have to be more assertive about it. We're going to have to say, if the power mongers don't listen to us, we're going to bring power to us. And it's a little bit like the late great Tony Benn said, when he said, this is not a protest, this is a demand. If you get that, you get the shift in consciousness I'm seeking. Thank you. It's later than you think. I really don't think the sort of policies that Jean was suggesting, it's really too late for that sort of thing. We have got a society where we have an unsustainable balance of trade deficit, which is going to put us in the same boat as Greece in not too many years to come. We need to deal with that balance of trade deficit. We need to deal with the unsustainable levels of public and private debt. And we need to do that now and have a policy now. And we need a leadership now to push that forward. And this is what I'm trying to do. So this has been an opportunity to challenge the orthodoxy and bring to light the alternative views, that, to respect democracy and to stop, instead give out a message.
And a big thank you to all the candidates for dealing so fully with all our questions and for keeping to time. We will now have a very short break. Could you please be back within about 5 minutes? And while you are on the break, you have an opportunity to deliver some more questions for our deputy candidates. So we will be starting
Let's begin with Amelia, please, if we may.
It's great to be here in Bristol again and see so many familiar faces, even people coming from my party in Wales. And I'm stood here today asking you to re-elect me as your deputy leader. I've been working as deputy leader for the last 4 years, and I've been committed to the grassroots of this party, working with our local parties in our communities and listening to what you need from our leadership. I've travelled the country, visiting hundreds upon hundreds of local parties, from Leicester to Lancaster, Norwich to Newcastle, and even moving to Bristol for the month before the 2017 general election to support Molly in her campaign to be our next. I feel like you worked so hard in that election, and we had so much hope and possibility, and it was such a disappointment not to get Molly in this time. Next time, though. Next time we'll do it. I've seen the party through some of the most turbulent times in politics, whether that's been throughout the Green Surge, whether that was the 2015 general election, the 2017 general election, the Welsh Assembly elections, the London Assembly elections, the EU referendum, or countless council elections across the country. I feel that we now have the opportunity to build on these strong foundations that we've worked towards together, to take our party to the next level and communicate that bold and radical vision that we have. Working in communities means I can amplify your message in the press and media, getting local coverage for your campaigns and issues. Beyond that, I've worked on numerous press campaigns where journalists now come to me for reports, for statements, whether that's the BBC, ITV, Sky News, Channel 4 News, or even The Guardian, Independent, New Statesman, Ecologist, even Vogue recently, which was a new one to me. I've also worked to bolster our message, whether that was setting up.
Good afternoon. My name's Jonathan Chilvers. I'm a twice elected county councillor in Warwickshire, the West Midlands. And it's great to be here this afternoon. The last time that I was in Stoke Cross was on election day last year. And we all know what a disappointing result that is. But I think that you as a party in Molly can be so proud of that ground campaign that you ran last year. It was fantastic to be a part of it on that day. And I think if we keep being prepared and keep working, we've got a fantastic group of 11 councillors in Bristol, another opportunity will present itself. And this time I think we can take it. So I'm proud of our unique green political philosophy, but we need to do better at getting that message out. Those principles that we all hold dear of environmental wisdom, social justice, local democracy, and non-violence make us really completely distinctive from all the other parties. And that's standing for deputy leader. So if we want to get our message out, our key leaders have to be elected to public office. Otherwise, to the media and to local government, we often come across as an unfocused, ineffective pressure group. If our key leaders are elected, then we're actually representing a cross-section of the community. To win an election, you have to win 35, 40% of the vote, and that sends a really different message about who we're talking for. To get elected, our message out, we have to talk about and demonstrate our green